Everyone deserves to feel valued, included, and set up for success during the hiring process. Our guests created an AI driven, skills first job marketplace and the first safeguarded and psychologically safe hiring tool for neurodiverse and vulnerable job seekers. Stay tuned for a delicious conversation on the Startup Life Live show. Let's glow, everyone. Hello and welcome to the Startup Life Live show. I'm your host, Ande Lyons, 4 times founder and startup champion to founders around the world. And I'm so delighted you're tuning in because I have to tell you, after raising these 4 businesses of my own, one with VC-backed funds and another with angel-backed funds and the other 2 with charming personality bootstrapped funds, I have to tell you, what you're going through every single day, how you show up for your startup really is amazing. And can I just get the clapper out and go, yay, you for doing that? And that's why I'm especially delighted that you carved out time to tune in and up your founder game today by tuning into the Startup Life Live show, because as you do better, your business will do better. And you'll be able to see and hear other founders' journeys and go, oh, I'm not the only one this happens to. Yeah, that's a no. You are not the only one. It happens. It's so hard, this journey. So yay you for tuning in and grabbing the gems while celebrating the remarkable founders you're going to be meeting today. If you are watching the video, please click a like button. We're live on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. So when you click that like button, it really helps us reach more founders and help more founder journeys. And if you're tuning in from YouTube, be sure to click on that subscribe button and to receive an alert whenever I post a new show. Please join our Startup Life Live meetup group. And the links are in the show notes. You can scan that QR code right there. This way you'll get a deep dive into the guest background every time I post a new show. And I'm live here Tuesdays and Fridays at 12 p.m. ET. I have a few Andelicious announcements to share before I introduce our guests. As always, on over to Arlen's Academy. Okay, it has some of the best information that you need to know about launching a successful business all in one place. So Arlen's Academy, we love Arlen Hamilton. You always see the book behind me right there. It's About Damn Time. You got to read it. It's amazing. It'll really help your founder journey. I also just learned today out of Pennsylvania, there's this Richard King Mellon Foundation, and they have a new for-profit social impact pitch competition. Deadline to apply is October 10th, 2022, and they welcome for-profit partners who are creating charitable, social, and environmental impacts to apply through their social impact investment. It's a lot of money. Okay, links are in the show notes, or you can go ahead and visit rkmfsandfrank.org to learn more. It sounds like a terrific opportunity. Also, our friends over at Inside, it's a new platform that just shares news that we all want to hear, have a wonderful program coming up called Meet Our Fund, and it's a virtual event to help you with your founder journey. Join 11,000 founders and learn from top VCs about raising capital and startup growth, because growth is where it's at, right? And then for you female founders, Catherine Gray, through her She Angel Invest, has a phenomenal 6 ways to fund your business, funding made simple for you female founders. She's terrific, and I know you will love learning from her. So go check that out. That links will be in the show notes for all of those Andelicious announcements. But I just want to give everybody a quick founder circle hug right now. The hardest thing about being a founder is that you're often siloed, right? You're often on your own and presenting a brave face to the world, whether it's your teammates, your investors, your vendors, or your family members, right? And so it's important that you reach out and ask for help, ask for support. So I'm here. Our guests are here for you. Please do not hesitate to amplify your business during the show. share your thoughts and questions in the comment section, or reach out to us at a later time, because your success means everything, certainly to me. And I know the guests I have on the show are there to support you, add wind to your sails, and open doors for you. Okay, so now I get to do the fun part, which is introducing our Ande-licious guests today. So I just want to bring up their artwork here before I start yabbering away about these two wonderful, I call them the dynamic duo. And it's Joseph Williams and Cayelan Mendoza. And these two tech founders were consistently overlooked for job opportunities and were often filtered out of application processes by systems that wouldn't consider them because they didn't have degrees and came from non-traditional working backgrounds. So they solved that problem, as founders do, and they combined their superpowers and created an AI-driven platform called Clue, a skills-first job marketplace and the first safeguarded and psychologically safe hiring tool for neurodiverse and vulnerable job seekers. And this innovative hiring process, which I've been told is rec tech, recruiting tech, gives everyone a better opportunity to demonstrate their skills regardless of where they learn them, in a safe and accessible environment. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to bring them both into the show. Yay! Welcome, Joseph and Cayelan.
Hi.
Jazz hands. I'm so happy to see you both, and thrilled to have you on the show, and thrilled to celebrate you. Where are you both sitting right now? Where are you hailing from?
Well, we're in London, in the UK, and I think we're in adjacent rooms. And there was just a rainstorm, and now the sun has come out, so it's kind of like perfect timing.
Excellent. And folks, that was the one and only Cayelan Mendoza waving out to the world there. Yay! And how about you, Joseph Williams? You're in the room next door. Have you guys always been in London?
Kind of both of us, actually. Have had relatively nomadic starts in life, I think. I, particularly my early years, left the UK when I was like 2, went around a lot, and then came back later in life. And Cayelan's, as an adult, kind of moved around a multitude of different places, and we both found our way back to London. Room next door to one another.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, we're going to find out that story. I just want to say a quick hello. Hi, Toya. So happy to see you. Toya is a professional producer of these live stream shows. She is so amazing, and a fan of the show, Brent Manuel. Brent is from Ottawa, Canada. He's a diverse person, a loyal fan, super stoked for this episode because this topic is very near to his heart and deep to his heart. And so, and Brent, you do so much great work in the world regarding diversity and making sure that we are all doing a great job in bringing diversity into our startups, especially the invisible and visible disability. So this is perfect episode for you, Brent, for sure. Okay, so Cayelan and Joseph, I first have to know, how did you two meet? I want the details.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm a very project oriented person. Once I get a bee in my bonnet, I love to just kind of work away at it. And I had my day job. I was building computer games, and I also had this kind of idea in my head that, you know, I don't want to go on any sort of dating apps. I will just kind of meet someone when I'm out and about. But because I was working all the time, because I was doing my projects, I was actually just not going out. And so I finally decided to bite the bullet and accept reality. Like, I need to make space in my life to meet someone, otherwise I won't. And so this very, very well kind of written advert popped up on Instagram talking about this new platform, which was, there were community standards. It was a lot more, you had to kind of pledge a certain behavior to be a part of it, which appealed to me because I find the dating apps to be quite transactional and intense. And so, yeah, the marketing in that advert, it turns out, was actually crafted and influenced by Joseph, who was actually working with the founders of that dating app. And so basically Joseph's words spoke to me through this Instagram ad, and I downloaded it, and then we matched.
Oh my gosh, I love it. See, words matter, folks, right? And how they're crafted. That's wonderful. And you found that you had similar interests and similar goals and similar desires in life, as well as personally and professionally.
Exactly. And ironically, working in the dating app gave me the insight into creating smart match tech algorithms. So for many reasons, that was probably one of the more rewarding jobs that I've had previously.
I love that. Yes, Mia Voss. Isn't that? Oh, I love this story. Joseph and Cayelan and listeners and viewers, I have to always, when Mia stops by and says, hi, you know what I got to do? I got to bring up the flyer for her phenomenal podcast, Shit We Don't Talk About with Mia Voss. Scan the QR code there or visit shitwedon'ttalkaboutpodcast.com because Mia dives into topics we don't talk about in the best of ways. Yay.
I love that. Yeah.
So we could wax lyrical for a little while by the sounds of things.
And Mia's coming in from Sedona. She's usually in Denver, but thank you for tuning in from Sedona, Mia. That's so great. Okay, so guys, this entrepreneurial journey isn't for everyone. And what happens is sometimes we see signs of it in our childhood, or we get, exposure to it from parents or extended family, or in some cases, the problem is just so important for us to solve. We'll say, hey, I will go and figure it out and start a business around it. Cayelan, how did you guys come together and decide you wanted to launch Clue and this platform Clue?
Well, so I guess the part of it that really resonates with me and pulled me into it in the first place is that because I grew up in Australia, I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. I was living and working in Vietnam for a few years. I was living and working in Germany. And when I finally came to the UK, I was able to code in lots of different languages. I had a lot of interesting experience all around the world. I was even investigating fraudulent marriages for the Australian Immigration Department. But because of the fact that
wait. That's an important thing to just tell everybody, because my other son lived in Canada. Same thing is people will get married in order to stay there, and it's not a real marriage. So you had to kind of dive deep in and find out what the heck was going on.
Yeah, but not just, I guess, in the context of, is this love? Actually, there's a whole element to it around, are people genuinely committed to a life together? You have to take away all of the subjective things like, who cares if you know the color of their toothbrush? That's so subjective and irrelevant to the fact that they're committed to each other. And so it was a really great way, I guess, to learn about, adult relationships and partnerships. And it wasn't all just fraud. It was actually really great to be able to help people to connect. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed it. But I also, there's the part of me that says, I don't want to spend my life looking into other people's lives. And so I did it. I loved it. I learned a lot. And now it's gone.
Time to segue. So, but you picked up a lot of great skills doing that. And then how else did you pick up skills?
So I think I'm just a bit of a storyteller. I don't know if that's because I'm the youngest of 7 children, and this is just the way that I had to, stand out, was just by having the most fantastic stories. But when I moved to Germany, I was programming computer games. I launched my first iPhone game, and at the same time, I was doing historic walking tours of the city. So just taking people around and telling them stories all about the, and making them feel welcome. And so, yeah, I think the common thread in all of the things I've done is it's storytelling. Even if it's a computer game, that's a story. You've got a captive audience. What are you going to tell them?
Right. Oh my gosh, that is so wonderful. As a mom of a son who's not only a gamer, but a game design degreed kid, I have a deep appreciation for the storytelling that goes on for all of that. And what about you, Joseph? What was your lived experience that got you to the place where you were able to say, I'm here, I'm going to do this?
Yeah, I always say that Clue is kind of innovation through necessity, which is such a consistent reality for anybody that it comes up against continual barriers that they just don't seem to find a way around. And for me, it was very much correlated to my professional experience. So I somehow. I mean, if you ask me how I ended up as a digital transformation / product innovation / whatever title they decided to give me, consultant, in my early career, I didn't go to university. I didn't study. I wasn't even particular. I'm not really technical as an individual, as Cayelan will definitely attest to. But I ended up in this line of work where we were helping organizations basically restructure to be digital first, from their product set, from people in the organizations. And time again, we would have these really big conversations around skills, and the skills gap, and how terrible it is that we just don't have the skills that we need. And then it would come to hiring and would say, where did you study? How long have you worked? What was your job title? Where did you work before? And all of that sensitivity around the skills that we needed completely dissipated from the process. And it's happened time and time again in most organizations I went to. Brilliant people, I would find myself and say, yeah, great, you applied, you're exactly what we're looking for. And then they'd get rejected from the process because they didn't come from, competitor A or, kind of discipline B. And the wonderful thing about neurodiversity, particularly my autism part of my brain, is that when I can't understand something, for most people this is very deeply frustrating, but for me, I think of it as quite a blessing. I can't let go, and so I would ask all of the talent team, and I would ask the HR teams, and I would say, well, why are we pretending that this is more important than this? And no one could give me an answer. So I did the really sensible thing that anyone would do at the height of their career, and I quit working in digital and went to work in the most hated sector in the world, which is recruitment. Well, maybe real estate is not as popular, but I mean it's definitely up there. And spent the best part of 5 years trying to convince recruitment organizations to build technology that would democratize the opportunity and remove all of these barriers to entry that really didn't substantiate themselves in a skills-first economy. We say we're a skills-based economy now, but the old way of hiring, basically, were you a doctor, a lawyer, a financier? Did you have a piece of paper that said that you could do the thing that you legally needed to be able to do? And that somehow becomes something that we use for everyone now. And the recruitment sector was kind of just, I wouldn't say just as bad, it's kind of worse. It was perpetuating the problem. And what I mean by that is that it operates very much like the diamond trade, in the sense that you are limiting supply in order to warrant the cost of the product. And so recruitment companies trade off of the network that they hold. So opening up that network to greater opportunity in more places never works in their favor. So you have this this conundrum where you've got this $500 billion industry being tasked with improving equity and representation, but the sector itself having no incentive to do so outside of its own kind of bottom line. Ethically, it doesn't marry up. So again, did the really sensible thing and just quit that job and decided to go and build it myself. Now, the clever thing is that I was with Cayelan at this time. And as I said, I'm not a technical person. So I hired the worst development company I could possibly find, knowing fully well that he would get really frustrated with how bad they were and then start developing Clue.
I love that.
An entrapment, but it worked, and so that's kind of where we've ended up.
Oh, thank goodness! I just like that. That's like the best story ever. And of course, the wise decisions we all make, right? When we go, we're done, we're leaving, we're quitting, we're going to go do this now. It's so important that you did this. And I remind people, I've been, I often say, hello, my name is Ande. I've been unemployable since 1992. I did fall off the wagon once and got hired, but I quickly fired myself. But there was a period of time where our family needed me to go out and get some real steady, paycheck income. So I got all in it. I got all fancied up and did all the applying. I got nothing. In fact, I ended up writing a big post on what the heck with these algorithms. I would even have board members take my resume to a company and still not hear anything. And so it reminded me just how awful and demoralizing it is to apply for a job if you don't know anyone. And then, especially to jobs that say skills based, where you've worked so hard to build up your background and your knowledge base and your ability to get stuff done and build. And nobody cares because the algorithms often are what filters things out. Yes.
100%. And the way that they're constructed is, we've kind of used the marketing funnel methodology for recruitment technology, and that, whilst in principle, it makes sense. You create this lovely automated process where you see what is successful and you try and get more of it into your funnel. However, we're dealing with people, and at the end of that process, someone is feeling valuable as a human being or not. Someone isn't deciding whether they're going to make a purchase or not, which is, there is literally no psychological impact other than the endorphin of actually purchase that someone will feel at the end of a marketing funnel. Whereas the trauma of rejection is something that we talk about significantly, and particularly when you find that people from overlooked, underutilized, marginalized communities are often tokenized in processes just to say, we had X% of women on our shortlist. We had X% of Black people on our shortlist. These are the people that end up being rejected. And so when you're told no, time and time again, the way that you even have the capability to show up in an interview, to apply for a job, the way that you feel about yourself, your fundamental worth as a human being is compromised. And so when we have a system where any person can apply for any job without any accountability, that in itself is an ethical breach. And that is what we have to kind of start with in addressing.
Wow. I'm overwhelmed with the deliciousness. And yes, absolutely, Brent, disability is innovation. And by saying that you only have a few folks coming in, we've met our criteria. We've met our quota for, quote, minority. I mean, that's just the worst thing in the world, right?
Yeah, well, because it completely it completely devalues the talent that exists within the individual. It says that you're here because you are different. You're not here because of your skill. One of the things that we've demonstrably proven through all of our kind of development is that when you make people feel comfortable in a process, they show up in a very different way. And the skills and talents that are demonstrated by diverse communities are exemplified in psychologically safe hiring processes. And what does that mean?
I need an example.
Yeah, it means more diverse people end up getting hired just by creating psychologically safe environments where people feel set up for success. Recruitment is a testing, filtering process. It's not seen as a matching process. It's like, let's prove that you're not the right person for this until you get the job, as opposed to you right there, you could be really good at this job particularly. Let's invite you and 6 other people or whatever into the process and see how we get on.
Oh my gosh, reframing that instead of, we'll see if you're good enough to come work here. And folks, this is a tough job market to find people. So imagine having it framed like, we're going to put all these obstacles in the way to find out if you're good enough to be what we want to hire, versus, hey, I love this in your background. You've done this, you've done that. Come on, let's talk. Let's see if we're a fit.
100%. And I will stop here because Cayelan will, but I've got one more thing just to add on that. The barriers to entry that currently exist, still 80% of people, Gartner, so this isn't just kind of small little startup clue saying this data, even though our data is fantastic, but Gartner found that 80% of people don't have the right skills for their jobs. So we've created this system where 50% of people leave their jobs within the first 12 months. LinkedIn found that, again, not just silly subjective data. Gartner found 80% of people don't have the right skills for their jobs. And something like 80% of people find recruitment to be the most stressful experience of their lives. This is a fundamental pillar of people's well-being and feeling of value in life. We are so ignorant to the effects of poor recruitment and no one is really taking accountability for it. And this is why developing a safeguarded solution was so important to us. I've felt completely objectified in hiring processes previously, and on the same time, I've also been told to go and sit in broom closets if I'm having sensory overloads. So there's just such a lack of, I'll say, literacy, because it is ignorance, but right. Ignorance, I think, seems willful, whereas illiteracy just means that they haven't been taught yet. And I think that the lack of literacy around psychological safety, starting from long before someone starts in an organization, completely shifts the way that people not just turn up in your interview process, kind of deliver for your organization, but ultimately retain the cost. Like
I'm still
huge opportunity, if nothing else.
And listeners, and viewers, maybe you're feeling what I'm feeling, which is I'm still stuck on that 80%, 80, do not have the skills for the job. Like,
if I could add an anecdote to that. So when I first arrived in London and I was trying to find work, I think I did about 90 applications over the course of 4 weeks, by which point I'd just run out of money and I just had to go into a coffee shop, and I got the job because the manager thought I was cute. The thing is that, like, I applied for a reception role because I'm like, yeah, I managed all sorts of things. I'm fantastic with admin. I've got great phone manner. And they're like, cool, so what's your degree? And it's like a degree in typing. Like, the whole point is that, it didn't matter what I could do. And I would have been great at it. Maybe I would have been over skilled for it. But the point is that I was just not even given the opportunity. And so when you say things like people don't have the right skills for their jobs, it's not their fault.
That's right, because they've been brought in. And, a lot of times, and folks, I say this a lot regarding fundraising for your startups, it's a meritocracy out there. So they're looking for maybe not like-minded, but they're looking for who they think in their head they've decided the person should look like for that job. Mm-hmm. And this is a huge opportunity when you see something so dysfunctional, like recruiting tech, like Ande, LinkedIn, all of these places that provide the opportunity to recruit, and they've got algorithms and they've got all these ways to keep people out. You guys are disrupting technology. You're disrupting the recruiting technology industry. You're disrupting so much of the hiring process through Clue.
Ande, I think a lot of people saw that recruitment was a big area to disrupt. I mean, I heard a statistic. One of our board members, the wonderful Maggie Lower, used to be the CMO of a large recruitment group in the US. And she said that there was more recruitment companies in London than there were in the US. Just as an example of just the sheer scale of people seeing that recruitment is an easy cash cow in the UK. Exactly. Because the baseline is so low, a really average, less than average person could find 3 people and introduce them to an organization and then walk away with 8-9K.
Yeah.
It's a lifestyle thing. But recruitment technology as a market is growing at a CAGR about 7% year on year. So it's really, really booming. The problem is the focus is on digitization and automation. It's not innovation. And that means that all of these bad practices are being hard-coded into current solutions. So then whilst we come along, we're like, yeah, so here's the actual fix to this. The entire ecosystem that exists on this side is not engineered to recognize skills. It is not engineered to be psychologically safe. It is not engineered to recognize anything other than these really binary algorithms that focus on basically what you've done instead of what you can do. And even those, we're lucky enough to even have a glimpse of skills related data associated with them, it's all secondary. It's all kind of backup files. None of it is front and center. So if we really want to create democratic opportunity, we talk about economic participation a lot, right? Particularly personal incentive. One of my purposes, one of my missions in life is to as a disabled person, grow a disabled-owned business, because we know that disabled people are more likely to work for disabled-owned businesses. I want to elevate, anyone that's a disabled business owner, we will give you Clue for free. Hire, bring people into your organizations, because the economic disparity disabled people face is palpable. The lack of support, the lack of opportunity, the lack of infrastructure is palpable. The small bit that we can do to introduce people into organizations in the right way and set them up for success, the economic impact that we are hoping to achieve as a result of that is significant.
Economically and psychologically, and creating a life because that feels of value. How important it is to get up every day filled with purpose. And it may be for the job you're working at, maybe for something that you're passionate about as a side, hobby or whatever, but you have to have that reason. And work provides so much for us humans. It provides camaraderie, community, getting challenged, maybe the opportunity to bitch and complain a little more, whatever that is. Work environments just come with all of these wonderful tensions that add value to life and enhance life. And by cutting a huge population out of that process, what do you think about the video interviews that started to happen? Okay, listeners, Joseph eyes just went, oh.
I think that, as a concept of, being able to connect with people when they can't physically be there, I like the idea, but there are certain things about it which, lean into the bad practices and I guess the biases that make it, like imagine if you don't have a good quality web camera, or maybe the environment that you're in at home, there's some kind of disruption. I don't know. There are so many things that could affect that environment that would look unprofessional, but it speaks nothing to how you would actually show up in your job. And so, yeah, I love the idea of connecting people in more ways, but there's got to be some kind of way that we can also not let that be a hindrance.
Okay, so let's go to where you said, okay, I've had it. And you made the wise decision, Joseph, to go ahead and say, I've learned enough along the way to know, from your different gigs, what is required to produce a platform that has psychologically safe and skills-based opportunity for recruiting people. Where'd you get the money? How did you, we know how you roped Cayelan in. But, how did you fund this?
Well, one of the biggest blockers to this is, when you don't have MBA networks, when you haven't been to big fancy universities, you don't have a lot of friends who are bankers and, just sit on loads of cash that can stump up your, kind of angel round or whatever. So a lot of saving, put together basically 3 years worth of income on a very low budget, set up an infrastructure where I had enough of a portfolio. We're very lucky. We've got a program in the UK called SEIS, which is a tax relief program. So I did quite a bit of SEIS investing back when I had anything other than debt. I had enough of a portfolio to kind of keep things ticking over, had enough savings to keep things ticking over for 3 years, and that was my line. Since then, it is just basically beg, borrow, steal. But because of the, I think, tenacity that you have when what you're doing is so much more than yourself. I probably get onto this at some point, but I see a large part of this mission as the continuation of my mother's legacy. She was a phenomenal educator, dedicated her life to improving the education outcomes of young people. And there is something that is a non-rest in me in continuing and fulfilling that legacy. Her life was taken very, very young. So that is the driver behind this. And so you can't fail. So you will always find ways to make it work. Most people probably would have quit by now. Because it's a very heavy market. There is a fierce amount of competition, but we've been doing things the right way, and subsequently have been able to amass an incredible board of directors. We've got SVPs from Salesforce, we've got the CMO of Hootsuite, we've got people exec from Google behind what we're doing, because they believe that this is the future, this is sustainability. So it's there is no real answer to that, other than we've had to probably do things in a relatively unconventional way, because we've had to really focus on turning around a revenue generating company as quickly as possible, kind of like building through MVP, piloting, and also selling the product at the same time, and being like, over here whilst all of this is still being created. But subsequently, in year 1, 5 months live, we turned over 200K on an average.
Okay, wait. Say that again for people in the back. And I'm going to go dig into some of the details with Cayelan. But you launched the platform when?
In February this year.
February. And within 5 months, you have revenue.
Yes.
Come on. And you said 200K. I mean, seriously, I know it's just the beginning, but that is a good sign of proving your minimum viable product, your MVP, that people wanted it, they're willing to pay for it. You're getting the traction, which increases valuation of your business. I'm turning to Cayelan now, because I want to know, what was it like when you came on board, Cayelan? I'd like to know your view. How did you see the platform? What did you see that needed to be done to make it a positive user experience, to keep your mission and vision? Vision, everybody, is the outcome. Mission is why you exist. Pulling that all together. What did you see that needed to happen, and how were you involved in finding the different distribution channels and reaching folks and making sure it was technologically a great experience?
So there were a lot of things that needed to kind of come together all at once, and I love problem solving. And so the first thing, obviously, is when I saw the software that we were working with from the former development team, we couldn't even sign into it. So I thought, can we salvage this? And so actually I looked into it, worked with some external developers to just understand the code better. And I realized that actually we needed to start from scratch. So we just shelved all of that. And on the one hand, that's quite intimidating, because it's like, well, I'm actually just about to take on a huge amount of work. There's no backing out of, there's no dipping your toe in. You're either in it or you're not. But the amazing thing about that is that when you get to build it from the start, you can step back and blue sky think, how should this be? And so when it came to things like how we're going to make it scalable, I was able to lean into, for example, I was getting when I was launching games on iPhone 4, which wasn't a particularly powerful phone, the kind of tricks you have to do with your coding to make it perform well actually translates really well to making like a multi-tenant cloud platform. And so just, those ideas and that problem solving from what I'd done in the past, I could actually fit it in to creatively make Clue able to run on a fairly simple server, so that way we can kind of grow it as we scale. But in the meantime, it wouldn't cost us a lot to run.
Oh, Cayelan, yes, I love that you're a problem solver, but I also want everyone who's listening and watching to understand this happens with product development. Oftentimes you have to scratch it. Just say, never mind, scrap it. It's done. And I don't know if you guys remember when we had the woman on, the founder on, whose developer only knew front end. And so when they said, this is going to work great, how about the back end? He completely ghosted them and they had to start from scratch. These are the stories. So if you have failed on the tech side, on the product development side, you are not alone. A lot of times this is part of the learning experience. So I want to just say that, Cayelan, is so great. And Cayelan, you also said something that I want to shout out as a stitch that on a pillow moment, which is, you're either in it or you're not. You're either in it or you're not. I'm doing a quick stitch that on a pillow, folks. And the reason is that is a discernment moment, before, either you're really in it or you're not. So don't go down that, or pull on that thread if you're not in it. And I love that part of your story. And I love that Joseph was able to get you on board. And you being the problem solver that you are and the experience that you'd had to date, you were able to see all the parts and pieces and what needed to come together. And because of your game design background, you knew how to make it fun, how to make it interesting, and along with the parameters of psychologically safe and skill-based as well. So when you guys launch, because it's one thing to, test it out and have your friends test it out and maybe have a few freebies, test it out. What happened when you launched? Because this is when we really learn a lot about our platform and our customers, right? And our technology. Cayelan, what happened when you launched? What did you see immediately that you liked and didn't like?
Well, I guess, the reality of something going out in the wild is that the ways in which you might imagine it being used seldom the ways that it is. And so it's kind of like, when things hold up and when people were able to sign up, it's like, cool, it's working. But then some of the kind of bugs we were getting, it's like, wow, never thought of that. And so it was just like around the clock, just constantly problem solving, writing emails back. Just it's kind of like I don't know, like a newborn baby. You just have to attend to it. You can't leave it. It's like, we're not done. It's never really done.
And folks, take that in, okay? Because that's such a great founder journey, especially tech founders. When you launch it, this is when you really need to get braced, right? For the slaps in the face, oh my gosh, we got to do the all night there, fix this, fix that. But at the same time, it's exhilarating because now you're able to fine tune in a way that you couldn't. What was your experience, Joseph, when it went live?
I really appreciate the metaphor of the newborn baby, because I think, well, for two reasons. Firstly, completely volatile, completely unpredictable, and one day you shake the rattle and it's the best thing in the world, and the next day you shake the rattle and you do get a slap in the face. So that very much, but also with a newborn baby you gain such perspective, and you learn to not take every single little micro instance as a signal of your success as a parent. And I think that, as a founder, like for me, I mentioned before, I am data obsessed, and I know that's probably an overused term, but because I use kind of quantification as a coping mechanism in my day-to-day life, with my product, with the product that we're building, I'm in it so deeply that one day I'll see great engagement, and then the next day I'll see terrible engagement on the same thing. And in the very early stages of this, I go to Ken and be like, something's wrong. What's happening? Why is this happening? And voice of reason in the corner would always try and reason with me and kind of help me see that this is just a kind of peaks and troughs thing. But after time, I realized that a la newborn baby, taking a step back and kind of taking each of those micro instances as a single data point, perspective is key. Comparison is the thief of joy. There are so many good and bad moments. Just let them tally up. Just kind of keep the perspective. And then at the end of the month, do you have a good month? Do you have a bad month? Great. Okay. What can we learn? How can we change? How do we evolve? Learning to not be as obsessed with every single little thing was the most freeing part of the founder journey. It's something that I never managed to achieve in any of my jobs previously. And it was this that actually ended up teaching me that.
Oh my gosh, okay, folks, I'm having an Andelicious moment with that. Joseph is absolutely right. You can get so caught up in the weeds and the minutia detail instead of stepping back, being the observer, and understanding the bigger picture and sort of the bell curve aspect, instead of focusing over here or on the left or on the right. And why did that all happen? Overall, this was really good in this middle area.
100%. My incredible, wonderful coach, shout out every single time, Sharon Clues, said to me, this was my first CEO. Oh, 100%. I mean, phenomenal human being.
Clappers out for Sharon. Everybody. And I know Joseph will say that it's so important to have a coach, someone who you can have as a sounding board and help you along the way, because you cannot do this alone. Go ahead.
100%. Because I'd never been in a CEO role before. I've been a COO, I've been a CMO, but I hadn't sat in that kind of pinnacle of leadership previously. And as someone with autism and ADD, that was quite an overwhelming concept. And I kept on trying to go back into my CMO hat, or trying to go into my COO hat, whilst also having to simultaneously wear those hats, because when you're at the beginning of the journey, you are the jack of all trades. You have to be. But working with Sharon helped me learn to focus on the business and not be in the business. And whilst simultaneously wearing those hats and pulling the strings and making sure all those other things happened. And that was absolutely fundamental. And I kind of also the discipline. I mean, Cayelan is my boyfriend and he is my business partner. The discipline of being able to know what hat to wear when is so important. I kind of say, we're in a relationship together, we live together, and we work together. So it's like the three pillars of kind of, I guess, well-being, stability. If something goes wrong in any of those, it affects every single one of them. So the boundaries, the sequencing, and the kind of discipline has been such an incredible learning curve. But that's now something that trickles down into the organization. We have, the kind of leadership principle is clarity, accountability, transparency, trust. And so long as we kind of follow that flow in our decision making, we maintain a positive course of direction. Everyone knows what they're doing, they know who's responsible for it, they know what happens if it doesn't happen, and they're trusted to get on with it and kind of steer the ship towards the direction that we set. Hearing other people in the organization starting talking about, for clarity, and having these little okay, so is that, who's accountable for that? People that we've taken on as grads now, kind of thinking and kind of behaving in that way. It's radiating. And I think, going back to how we've been successful so quickly, being absolutely resolute on what it is that we're here to do as a business and how we work as a business, while still being inclusive, but being, these are the things that we will not compromise on, has meant that we've hired, we've made mistakes, we've had to get rid of people quite quickly, but all the time kind of growing and sustaining that kind of embryo at the heart of all of this, which is the people. We didn't hire people that had been in the game for decades, or had all of this experience. We hired people who were passionate. We hired people who were problem solvers. We hired people that were good communicators and willing to work hard, because ultimately everything else can be taught. But without that ethic, that's what it is as a startup. It's not about knowing all the things. I've seen so many brilliant people I know as founders fail because the fundamental ethic of work, not the knowledge of work, is what they lack.
Wow, the fundamental ethic of work, not the knowledge of work. Oh my gosh. And so folks, this is so important to understand too, is that it may look good on paper that you have someone with the decades of experience or this and that, and it can be very attractive, but you really need them to be passionate, not only for the mission and vision of the company, but really for what you, the founder, are bringing to the table. And that's a two-way street. You have to bring your passion as a founder for what you're working on, and that gets instilled into your team. But the team also, needs to have that capability as well. And that is not something that shows up on paper, right?
Which is at the heart of why the CV is redundant and Clue exists.
Right. So I've got to ask Cayelan, Joseph was just talking about the boundaries that are so important. And folks, if you have a hard time with boundaries, either get a coach, read some books, do something, because boundaries are key. And as a person who had a business with her husband, heavily VC backed, .bomb, I know what it's like, and raising kids too. Oh my gosh. And we've been together 37 years. What boundaries are working for you? Because you both are on such an important mission. You're two individuals, you're two unique lovable, delicious men. How do you keep the boundaries, Cayelan, that, work on honoring the relationship? Because like the businesses out here, your relationship is too, and it needs that kind of nurture and attention.
I think one of the pitfalls with boundaries is that you can end up compartmentalizing everything, and you forget to feel, and you forget to pay attention to yourself and water the plants, as I like to say. And so actually a massive part of the journey is just getting to know myself better so that I can understand what my needs are. And I have this little metaphor that I like to toot, which is, if you want to be able to travel through hyperspace, you need to fuel your rocket. And so you have to just take care of, if you're not resting, if you're not taking the time to nourish yourself and fulfill your own needs, you're not going to actually have the energy to be able to give to your work, to your relationship. And so part of the boundaries is making time for yourself.
I didn't think about that. Joseph will be right back, folks. I didn't think about that, Cayelan, that aspect of it. I think that is so important. I hope everybody's taking that in as far as the understanding that you have to continually be looking at yourself, growing yourself, loving yourself, and be responsible for your happiness instead of, being responsible for having someone else be responsible for that. And Ruth, I agree 100%. I love how they focus on the passion of the employees, then the background. And I'm just going to say, hi, Ruth, my community manager out of Nairobi. Love you. So grateful for you here. And Richard O, I love your comment too. Many times our disability gives us enhanced skills. Yeah.
.com.
.com.
Yeah. .com. Go on, Cayelan.
Well, I'm just I'm more happy to give you the mic on it, but I just wanted to add in that when every day you need to innovate and be creative just to get by, it makes you become more resilient. And so I don't think it's surprising that people who are disabled actually have the grit and the talent and the creativity, because it's survival,
Absolutely. And you used my favorite word, grit. Grit is what you tap into in order to be resilient and tenacious and persistent. Grind, on the other hand, is an external thing, something that you have to do to get through something. So grit is absolutely right. And 100% on the resilience that's built when you've had to overcome the non-accessible environment you tend to live in. And that's why we look to our disabled folks to bring the innovation, because they're having to see the world in a completely different environment. So let's talk a little bit about how you onboard people. How does Clue work as far as how do you find folks? How do you advertise? Is it word of mouth? How do you get people in to test out? How do you bring in employers in order to get the job postings? How does that all work? Who wants to take that? It's a multiple question. I am so sorry.
No, we're fine. So I'll focus on the how do we ensure that the opportunities that are created by employers include reach the communities that we, albeit at this point in our conversation, have just professed to support. A significant amount of technology companies off the bat will be like, okay, so what's our paid strategy? How are we going to kind of, use LinkedIn, or, not LinkedIn because it's stupidly expensive, but Facebook, or, kind of Instagram ads, or, how are we going to get into Reddit and kind of make sure that we're, or Twitch, everyone's on Twitch these days. How are we going to set up our paid ads on Twitch? All of that is much of a muchness. I don't think we have the luxury of really kind of heavily putting money into our advertising, our brand advertising, which ultimately digital is at the conversion rates that it operates at.
Right.
So we wanted to create a really, really robust partner network that would refer people into Clue based on the trust that the partner network had in us, and we would successfully get the people into Clue based on the trust that the partner network had with the communities that they support. So we've completely mitigated our need to spend money on digital by creating a really robust partner network. And that started off with kind of community groups that would focus on autistic, upskilling autistic people in digital tech, or kind of a local group that was helping young excluded children still get qualifications and then kind of open up opportunities. But now we work with the national youth homelessness charity, the national the biggest disability focused charity in the country. We've hot off the press just opened a partnership to support all of the University of Oxford's disabled and neurodiverse graduates into work as well.
Congratulations, that's great.
Yeah, that's incredible. But it's even that as an example, just a quick caveat, I can't help it, I will. But when you speak to institutions, when you talk about the support of diverse talent, instantly the conversation goes to gender, and sometimes it also goes to ethnic diversity, and sometimes we start talking about social mobility, but people have got a really bad idea of what social mobility actually looks like. So it's often conflated.
What is social mobility?
Social mobility is this is a difficult question because there are multifacets to it. I think instead of saying what it is, I'll say explicitly what it's not. Social mobility has been banded with academic efficiency for far too long. And what that means is that you are only deemed to be socially mobile if you are going to college, going to university. What we are seeing, or what we're trying to encourage, is looking at the kind of economic status of an individual, and focus on the level of economic attainment in the sector and the opportunity within the sector that they're moving into. We ask, as part of our kind of profile building question, really explicit questions around demographics. There's no sugarcoating, no kind of corporate. We care about all people the same. It's obviously we do as an organisation, but no one trusts or believes that language anymore.
Right.
It's abused for 20 odd years. What we say is, we explicitly work with employers who run programs to support people like you. If you do not tell us the communities that you're part of, we cannot get you in front of those employers. And so average disclosure rates sit at around kind of 20-30%, and ours is at 96%.
What? Wait a minute. Say that one more time again, because you just said it so cavalier. Say that again, please.
The average disclosure rate that organizations' hiring processes will have sits in and around that kind of 20-30% at best. Choose not to is obviously the preference. Ours fluctuates. Look, so between 90 and 96% disclosure, but this comes back down to the trust and the importance of the partner network in referring people into the system. If we weren't to have that, we would, as a new provider in the market, have to work for years to develop trust. And if there's one thing that I learned in all of my digital days, it's and really why I became interested in behavioral psychology, is that you have to build trusted relationships in a digital environment, because you don't get the benefit of the ease of relationship development in kind of face-to-face or person-to-person ecosystems. And this is a relationship economy. We are no longer transactional. We have to focus on trust. And whether that be from a recruitment perspective, whether that be from a fintech perspective, whatever it is, the starting place is you are not good. We don't approach people with that kind of blissful naivety of, oh, these guys are really on my side anymore. Like, everyone is jaded. Everyone has been screwed over for a very long period of time, particularly marginalized and overlooked people. Underutilized, marginalized, overlooked. The reason that you're called that is because you are. And so your experience of life is generally not great. And so what we're doing is just finding ways in which we can kind of bypass the time it takes to build those relationships. And so this is why the partner network is so important. I lost my train of thought there.
No, that's okay. But first of all, I just want to say, folks, think about this for your own businesses. Partnering, it's a wonderful way to quickly leverage, to quickly build and grow. When you get, the B2B partners on board, in this case, organizations that are probably in more the nonprofit sector, but they're on board, and in this way, you're able to leverage, because you're a startup. You need some people that already have wind in their sails to add wind to your sails and open doors for you. And also, I'm curious, and I don't know, Cayelan, this is a good question for you or to Joseph, but you talk consistently about Clue being psychologically safe. So there must be a way technologically that you are enabling this site to get where folks can feel immediately that they are safe. Gosh, that's such a good feeling in a world, especially when you're already marginalized, you don't have to gird your loins. You're like, okay, I'm taken care of here.
Yeah. Well, the difference is immediately apparent when you sign into Clue, because you're not like, once you sign up for example, a typical job board, you will have like a wall of jobs, and you're tasked with trying to figure out how you can sort of adapt yourself to squeeze into what it is that they say that they're asking for. And immediately when you sign into Clue, you don't actually see any jobs at all. You begin a journey where we're taking you through building your profile and just discovering what your skills are. One of the challenges and one of the things that we're focused on is, when it comes to articulating what your actual skills are, what you're good at, not a lot of people can do it, because you don't see this in CVs, you don't see this in job adverts. And so part of this journey is, hey, so where are you at in your career? Just understanding the level that you're working. What are you good at? What kind? The psychological safety comes around making it, for example, I'm asking you questions about you. What can you do? As opposed to, I'm trying to force you into this job. Because at the end of that process, what we're then able to do is say, hey, here are some opportunities that we think you would be great at. And there's a lot of power in that, particularly like, just some of the conversations we've had with people in the job centers who've been signing up. There was a guy who was just, rejection after rejection, and just didn't really feel like he could do anything. And after going through the process with Clue, and it said, hey, here's a job I think you'd be great at. And he's like, I could do that.
Oh my gosh. See, and that's that whole dating aspect, right? Is understanding that first we're going to find out about you and see like what is in alignment based on the threads you've pulled, but also in career-wise, but also in how you maybe seeing yourself going forward in life, like what inspires you and inspires you. And Joseph, to that end.
Perception bias. We in the way that the individual views themselves. When you are told, we're a heavily academically aligned schooling system. If you're not academically gifted or proficient, you're basically told that you're not good, or you're put in, kind of outside classrooms or even different schools if you're not academically inclined. I wasn't academically inclined. I did not thrive in learning environments because as it turns out, I'm neurodiverse, but that wasn't a thing, and it still is highly stigmatized to even kind of go down that route. But we have. Let me retrain my thought. We were talking about.
Oh yeah, we're talking about the safety and the psychological trust when people coming on board and
perception bias.
Experience.
Exactly. Yes. So sorry. Perception bias. We found that when you ask someone, even when you show someone a picture, recruitment advertising, like it's laden with people from diverse and underrepresented communities. In fact, go and find an advert that doesn't have either, a black woman or, a female or, someone gender non-conforming or, we're everywhere now. It's great. But then we did a piece of work in our initial day that basically, showed people from underrepresented communities pictures of people doing their jobs. And they're like, oh, that's great. People that look like me can do that job. Oh, but I couldn't do that job. I don't have the skills to do that job. So you get the positive kind of realization that people like you are achieving, but the perception bias you have of yourself, based on largely coming from institutions that don't recognize you or see value in you in the same way that they see other people, has a profound impact on your ability to see yourself in situations. And so the psychological safety, such an important part of this, is challenging the perception bias that people have within themselves. We've seen some wonderful kind of case studies in renewables, kind of like energy sectors, telco sectors, traditionally quite white male manual industries that have had huge attraction problems and spend millions of pounds on basically showing pictures of people in different communities doing the jobs they're struggling to hire into, and getting absolutely no traction whatsoever. We showed that, with a sample of job seekers, when you show them that they can actually do the job and they actually have the skills to do the job, you increase your likelihood to apply by up to 60%. So that is the most important fundamental part that we are not focused on at the moment, because we are using an advertising model for recruitment. We are not using a psychology-based model for recruitment, and that is the fundamental difference between the market and what we're doing. And that's how we create psychological safety, because we say that this is what recruitment would look like if it was designed by psychologists and not salespeople.
Oh my gosh, I hadn't even thought about the difference between advertising versus the psychological type of recruitment. I'm just, I'm still sitting there thinking about, first, renewables. Hello, we so need diversity. We so need disabled folks in renewables. And I'm going to believe you, they're spending that kind of money to actually bring folks in, but I have a hard time with that given the results. And I hope you make headway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but this is the thing we absolutely do. So even just a few weeks ago now, we had single mum, former offender, kind of bunch of kids. I don't know if you have them in the US, but 0-hour contracts where you're basically told you're employed, but you wait for the employer to send you shift work, like hours. But even though you're employed, you don't necessarily get paid or have hours to work. And the government have used 0-hour contracts as a way of kind of boosting employment figures without actually needing to kind of mobilize employability or kind of economic inclusion, which is in and of itself a problem, but we're not going to get political, I promise.
No, we could go there, but we will not today.
Yeah, not today.
On that one.
So
how did you match her up with did you match her up with a?
She's now a project coordinator in one of the big four, because for the role that they were looking for, they needed a resilient project manager who was a good communicator. And show me a resilient project manager who's a good communicator more so than a single parent with 3 kids who's managing a bunch of jobs.
Yeah.
And that's at the heart of it. If we do not start looking closer at what it actually takes to do a job well and reevaluating who is capable of doing it, we will fall into this trap every single time of limiting the talent that we have access to. This isn't we say this started as a social thing. Really wanted to understand why there wasn't greater kind of traction and ability for people that didn't come through traditional kind of work streams to get into the job market properly. But this is a business imperative. We talk about the skills shortage. We talk about the war for talent. I hate the term war for talent, but there isn't a war for talent. There is just significant barriers to entry that prevent all talent from being seen.
Right.
And so in order to sustain talent pipelines, in order to just create full value of, improve retention, all of these things that they fundamentally underpin by getting the right people into the right jobs. And newsflash, the right people aren't all degree educated.
Right.
This is something that is, we kind of, one of the things that we're trying to quantify at the moment is when people say, oh, you need a degree. That's cool, absolutely. What do you expect someone to have that has a degree that someone that doesn't have a degree? What's the skills that you expect that person to have that you don't expect these people to have? And if you can articulate that to us, that's brilliant, because then we can still open up the opportunity and be specific about those skills. But to this date,
right,
I have not been able to see one organization quantify that.
I'm just, So many great gems from this conversation, Joseph and Cayelan, especially what you just said, Joseph, with the significant barriers to entry in bringing in all types of talent. People just get, again, that meritocracy versus meritocracy. They get honed in on what they think it should look like, toss everybody out. And of course, the algorithms are there making the decisions, not real humans. And so what you've done is humanify. I don't know if that's a word, but you created a human experience, but leveraging artificial intelligence, machine learning to help you do a better job at matching people up based on their skills, based on their neurodiversity. And, Brent is always, he loves to ask folks, first he's saying here, this is so important, see the ability, not the disability. We love that. And he also likes to know of all the founders that come on the show, how diverse their company is. I think we can look at Clue and say, we got a lot of diversity happening, but maybe you can just.
Absolutely. So, one of the things that we got, that I've been said, people said to me time and time again, was why do you have an advisory board together so early in your journey, even when we were still kind of like beta piloting and kind of getting the real methodology down. We had an advisory board around us, but very intentionally we sought the subscriptions expert. We sought, by the way, I'm so sorry if you can hear the dog snoring in the background.
We can hear the puppy in the background.
He is very loud. I'm so sorry. But,
that's okay. That makes the experience real, right, listeners, right, viewers? We have our pets. They have a place in our lives. Here we go. Same way we've had kids come popping in. It's all good.
100%. We had the subscriptions expert, we had the finance expert, we had the public sector expert, we had the kind of brand and perception expert, we had voice of the customer. And in that team, we were like, okay, so who are the people that can do those and kind of be those voices around our table from as many different communities as we can possibly find? So, I won't say that we have the most diverse board I've ever seen in technology. However, because I can't substantiate that because I haven't seen every single board. However, I do think that we do. It is my gut feel belief that we do. And then when we look into the organization, we sustain. So we're 50-50 gender split at the, we're a small company, so metrics will swing very far, very quickly. But we do have two women in community and operations, and then you've got Cayelan in tech and myself in kind of marketing and leadership, I guess.
Yeah, and this is an important thing to chat about, and just to let folks know that you can have a diverse team. Diversity is what helps you reach all your customers, and it is. So often I hear, well, I can't find any fill in the blank. Oh my gosh, do I hear that so often? Mm-hmm. And it really isn't true. You have to create the either conversations or relationships in order to bring more diversity into your organization. But at the end of the day, you have to do the hard work, or you can go see getaclue.io and they can help you with building that. So what does success look like for you two? And we'll start with Cayelan, the overall, let's talk a little bit about, as you're looking at where it is today, 6 months after you launched, where would you like to see things in another 6 months? What would make you happy? We don't like to go too far out because so many great things can happen, but maybe even 12 months. What would that look like for you?
So for me, success looks like a power shift. And let me explain that in terms of I reached a point in my career when I was suiting up for interviews and kind of putting on this other face, and then I reached this point where I actually turned my CV into like a fashion magazine. I had a picture of Cayelan and this silly article which was like the New Job Times, and it was this story because I figured, what, if they don't get it, I don't want to work for them. And so when it comes to what I see success as, it's not, for example, people being a commodity for companies to pick up. It's people actually realizing their own value, and actually companies would be lucky to get them.
Right. Exactly. Boy, do I love that. We'd be lucky to have them on board. And how about you, Joseph? What does success look like for you and for Clue?
6 months. Reduced
12
CAC,
months?
reduced CAC, high net positive EBITDA. If I'm not wearing my kind of captain of the ship hat, I want to continually see a great democratization opportunity. Seeing those success stories come through of people that have applied for thousands of jobs and haven't received so much as a, kind of better luck next time. Being able to, whether a positive kind of hiring outcome or just an opportunity to learn and expand your kind of ability to articulate yourself as a job seeker, seeing those success stories and the positive outcomes through Clue, we kind of regularly get things like, I didn't know I could be set up for success like this. I didn't know, sorry, that's my language, but I didn't know that I could feel so honest about, who I am. I didn't know I could articulate myself in this way. This feels like it's really set me up differently as a candidate. This is the stuff that is kind of like the soul food. And so, I put on the CEO hat and I'm like, yeah, we absolutely have to reduce our CAC by like 50% over the next 6 months. We absolutely need, I'm absolutely positive that we're going to be EBITDA positive this year. And so I'm not going to stop until that happens, by the end of the year. But that aside, the reason that we're here is to make the working world work for everyone. And if we can achieve all of that, which is looking probable, kind of trying to hit 1 million turnover this year. And so, on track for that, whilst also continuing to be anchored to why we're doing this. As I mentioned, I think before, Andy, we're raising at the moment, but, we regularly get asked, oh, well, what about this person? Oh, have you spoken to those people? And for this particular round, because of the amount of our company that is being given away, if that investor doesn't align to, even at a baseline, the ethics of the importance of improving representation, if that investor doesn't understand why what we're doing is important, it's not going to be right, because you're going to be using that stake in our organization to push us in a direction that is not our course of travel. Right. And this is why focusing on growing and establishing a kind of cash positive business is so important to me, because I do not want to be at the whim of our investors, because what we're doing is so much more important than money. Yes. It's so much more important than money. And if we ever stand a chance of going off in that direction, I would see that as more of a fail than, kind of not reducing my CAC by 50%.
And as a result, you will find aligned investors. And I encourage anybody who's been listening, or if you know anybody who'd like to invest in Clue, reach out to Joseph, reach out to Cayelan. Emails are easily accessible. You can connect with them on LinkedIn. And, and I often say on the show, you need to ask the qualifying questions, because as much as your business needs the oxygen, it needs its life source, which is often money, you do not want to be married to someone who's going to undermine. And this is what happens to many of the businesses that fail. It's the people on their capitalization table, those folks who have invested, who really are not in alignment. And founders, if you're on whatever number business you're on, that when you have taken money that doesn't work for you and your business, it really does not help. And you end up having to start over and do something new. And just a quickie for those, we were talking about the CAC. Okay. That's the customer acquisition cost. If you want to learn more about the CAC ratio, please check out my Andelicious video on how to calculate the LTV CAC ratio. It's such an important understanding of your marketing return on investment. I make it Andelicious, the learning experience. I have all the formulas there. And from our last guest with Pascal, you've got to know your numbers with your business. And I make that fun for you. Guys, I just love this conversation. I love what you're doing with your platform. It is so important. I'd love to know individually, too, how this journey has served you both professionally. as well as personally, because, you know, you have, Joseph, you have been disabled. You've learned how to have that tough mindset. Cayelan, you've been told no and rejected in so many ways. You have already done that wonderful personal work on shifting your mindset. But I'd love to know entrepreneurship. I know for both of you, this is the first time you've really come at it in such a serious way, with all the right governance, with all the right purpose and vision and mission. And you know that you are going to grow this into a global enterprise. How, Cayelan, has this journey served you both personally and professionally?
So I think that the professional part is what feeds into the personal part, because professionally it's a huge risk, and there's no safety net. There is no padding to fall onto. But sometimes you need to actually take that away in order for you to fully commit to it. And just realizing that I have the capacity to flourish in that situation, it's kind of like this veil is just lifted off me, where I realized that I was maybe holding myself back, and I just needed to take a risk.
Yes, that's brilliant reminder that we can set our own limitations. And this journey is the best at showing you what I can do that too. Because again, it's the necessity part, right? That all of a sudden you've got to figure that out. And look what you can do. Yay!
Yeah, you'd surprise yourself, but then equally, if it doesn't work, you will never regret it, because you threw everything at it. But if it does work, well, of course it worked, because you threw everything at it.
See? You're singing my song. I always tell people you always win with entrepreneurship, no matter what happens. And how about you, Joseph? How has this journey served you as you've become the captain of this particular ship and applied your leadership and your ownership skills to how you move and groove in the world?
That is such a big question. I think so many of the lessons are still being learned. I think that there's, but I think actually, funnily enough, to that point, the thing that immediately sprung to mind when you said that is being okay with 70. I think that particularly when something is yours and you know its potential, you are so unwilling to compromise on your view of what that should be and who and how you want people to interface with it. And again, wonderful coach Sharon Clues, all the shout outs, once said to me, the only one expecting perfect is you. Everyone else is just going to be pleased that it's there. And that is the fundamental lesson in all of this for me, is iterate fast and be okay with 70. I can't tell you, we as a company have had 3 names. We have had maybe 4 different iterations of our website. We have changed our messaging probably on a month-by-month basis. I mean, it's there now, and it's beautiful. But you know, we create an idea, we take it to market, we say, does this work? They say no. We're like, okay, change it. We will never get lost in that, in our view of what this should be. I think since the beginning, we've had such a close connection to each of our customer groups. We've constantly created, I guess, control groups that exist within them, so that this becomes like our thing as opposed to just our thing. And the fundamental part of that is having that humility to kind of be like, it's okay, this isn't about, I've got my view of why we're doing all of this, but my vision alone is not enough to steer the ship. So, you know, kind of putting on the captain's hat, I think, you know, I hate how many people talk about, you know, being humble and all that. I'm like, I'm not humble about the fact that I am incredibly pragmatic, and I think I'm just trying to think of the right word. It's pragmatic, but I will never think that my opinion is enough, and I will never think that my opinion is the right opinion. I will always go to the team. I will always go to our advisors. I will always go to our customers. And as soon as we get to that 70%, this is about 70% where we should be going, move, next problem.
Yep. Seth Godin talks about that all the time. Ship it, folks. 70% is good enough. Okay. That perfection is elusive. It, as you said earlier, it's the thief of joy as well as, comparison. And you need to get it out and be delighting the customers, and then find out from them what would make them even more delighted.
100%. Actually, the other thing, if I can,
Yeah.
and it is naughty of me for carrying on talking, because
Oh no, this is fun.
I don't know if I told you, my my nickname in my earlier years was Soapbox, because the way that my kind of thought process tunnels, I'll end up starting talking about something, and then I'll be like, no, but I'm not finished talking. Like, this is not a conversation. This is me talking about all of the things that are in my head right now. And yeah, so I gained the nickname Soapbox quite quickly. But I think a really important lesson of becoming a founder is getting to a stable baseline before you make the jump. And what I mean by the stable baseline is, you cannot be jumping into this journey with unresolved trauma. You cannot be jumping into this journey as an incomplete version of yourself. You need to know exactly what you're brilliant at. You need to know exactly what you're terrible at. I mean, I am terribly unorganized. I've got ADD, and I focus on things that a million and one things at any one time. I cannot have a solid thought. So in our ops director, I have found the most incredibly organized person, but I had to have that humility to talk to her and say, look, these are the things that I cannot do. We get so caught up, and as a result of trauma and projection, we get so caught up in pretending that everything is brilliant and fine, and there's no challenge, and there's no, we're projecting success in the hope that we'll get there one day, but actually we are failing internally, and we are faulting, and we are clasping for kind of support, but we are too proud to kind of open that up. And this is all at the heart of this kind of pride and the unresolved trauma that you enter into this journey with. Fixing that. I mean, I did entrepreneurialism once before, and I wasn't ready for it, and it failed terribly. And it failed because I, as a person, was too committed to doing the job well, that I wasn't willing to fail. And I wasn't creating the opportunity for myself to learn, or my co-founder to really learn with me.
Right. And failure is absolutely key. And you can also say, soapbox or welcome to my TED Talk. All of those things work in describing yourself. And we're here for it. We're here to listen and hold the space, because you have a unique view of the world. And with Cayelan, you two have partnered and with your team have brought to us a platform that I know would make your mom proud, because I think, as you said, she's the underpinning to all of this, right, Joseph? That she was someone who cared that all were welcome, all types, all learning types were welcome, and how to best utilize that so they felt on purpose. So hooray for that. Any last thoughts before I pop you into the green room and wrap this up? Because, guys, I could sit here and listen to you all day.
Any last thoughts?
How much time do you have?
Pick one. No, I mean, look.
That you want to share about Clue? Anything you would like to leave folks with?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's the pragmatic stuff, which is we are currently raising. We're looking for really kind of socially driven people to come on this journey with us. Our trajectory is great, and we've got momentum. Like, we just need a bit of support. We're currently raising 400K, due to be our only raise. So if anyone's interested, you can find me on LinkedIn at JDTTWP, Joseph Daniel Williams. We'd love to hear from you. We're also running a campaign at the moment called Access to Funding, which is focused on the disproportionate level or lack of support that disabled founders face when attempting to raise. I myself have turned up to pitch competitions in inaccessible venues and have been told to go home. So there is a big problem, and through Access to Funding, we're trying to improve language, data capture, and experience for disabled founders when raising. And so if you're a VC, if you're an angel, if you're part of a syndicate, please get in touch with us, and we'd be more than happy to take you through that campaign and see if we could have you as a signatory on it as well.
That's wonderful. And Cayelan, any last thought you'd like to leave folks with?
So as much as the entrepreneurial journey is all about kind of finding that belief in yourself, so is everything that we're doing in Clue. So once you find something that you really believe in, that's what's going to help to give you that fire. And so when it comes to, I guess, the motivation that people are looking for, the journey that they're going to take, you have to pick the right thing. But when you find it, you will absolutely know.
Ah, see, that's so wonderful. All right, guys, I'm going to pop into the green room, wrap up the show. It has been such a phenomenal experience, and I'm so happy that the two of you joined me all the way from London today to share your beautiful business and your phenomenal and extraordinary founder journey with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andy.
Yay. I just bring myself into center screen, easy breezy. We went long today, folks, 90 minutes, but it's so important when we're talking about a topic that needs this level of attention and recognition, which is the huge dysfunction that we have in the hiring process, and how so many talented people are left out of the equation, or incredibly talented people are hired for the wrong job because of how folks are recruiting. And I really am excited about what Joseph and Cayelan are doing and the team at Clue to make the recruitment process and hiring process psychologically safe and skills-based. Makes my heart sing with joy. All right, I'm not going to be around on the 30th, but we'll be back on the 4th with a phenomenal founder based out of Boston, out of Massachusetts. And it's a wonderful, innovative platform that is actually helping folks connect startups with compatible, forward-thinking manufacturers, design firms, and engineers. They make right-fit introductions between this diverse network of suppliers and well-prepared and well-supported startups, creating new and exciting physical products and components. We've got the executive director of Forge, Forge, Lori Tischer, joining us to share how they're helping founders get that MVP built when it needs to be manufactured, and more than technology. And how do you know when I am launching another show? You just join the Startup Life Live meetup group, and you'll get all the alerts and everything that you need. I'm wishing you a delicious day everywhere you glow. I am, again, in wonder of all the courage and tenacity and resilience that you're bringing to your startup journey. And I'm so delighted that you tuned in to hear this founder journey and the two founders of Clue share their stories. So until next time, from Boston, mwah, shake it easy.